Welcome back to another episode of this Thing of Ours podcast
where we talk about all of life's highs and lows.
and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what?
What's up?
We've reached over 100 subscribers.
Yep.
At the time of this recording.
Yep.
So thank you to everyone that has subscribed. Honestly, my heart lit up when I saw the 100 mark.
Yeah.
I got a notification. I said, "You've reached 100 subscribers." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. No, that is actually a really good milestone.
Yep.
But yeah, no, we are very, very grateful for everyone who has subscribed up to this point.
Thank you.
As we mentioned in our last podcast, being grateful and showing gratitude is something very important in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen that, we'll leave a link in the description below and put a quick preview right here.
Wow, we're hitting them with the preview real early into this podcast. All right, here's what you missed.
When you show gratitude for the things that you already have, that you wish you had in the past, life will present you more opportunities to get the things that you want in the future. I feel like you're trying to say. No?
Yeah.
So that was just a quick little preview of last week's episode about showing gratitude and being grateful. But we did mention in that episode a little bit about showing forgiveness. And I feel like that is a very big topic. A lot of people I find struggle. I know I have struggled with forgiving some people in my past, sometimes forgiving myself. For things that I've done and, different paths that I've taken. So yeah, I feel like that is a very big topic.
That's what you want to talk about for the next 30 minutes?
I think so.
Okay. We can definitely take it that way.
Well, why do you think forgiveness is important?
Honestly, I think it sets you free.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives me freedom. And that's why I think forgiveness is extremely important. That's the number one reason why I choose to forgive. Or I'm trying to learn to forgive.
As you mentioned in the last one.
How you ate my lunch, and that was like 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to learn how to forgive just because I want freedom and I want happiness. I just want to live my life and life goes on. I think that is why forgiveness is super important to me.
Yeah. And I feel like when it relates to someone else and you not forgiving them, a lot of the time that person's going on with their life.
Yes, true.
Like they're not even bothered with you anymore, right? And you're just constantly replaying that thing that happened, that negative event, and they're just moving on with their life and you're still stuck in the past. And you may be somewhat moving on, but every other day that thing may pop up in your head and disrupt your day or disrupt your mood and disrupt your happiness.
Yeah. Do you actually think we ever forgive someone?
That's actually a really good question. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time we do forgive, but it would be kind of foolish of us to forget. Because a lot of the time, if it's something that we're forgiving ourselves for or forgiving another person for, a lot of the time it was a negative event that occurred. And there's always, like I mentioned, or I always mention, there's lessons to be learned in every circumstance that we go through, right? So to forget what happened means we didn't learn, right? We didn't take away a positive from that occurring. So I feel like we need to not forget the event.
Yeah.
But forgive in a sense of you're not going to hold it against them in the future, because a lot of people do change. We change ourselves and we can't keep replaying the victim card, or, I don't even know how to explain that, but we can't keep blaming ourselves or blaming another person. We just got to move on. Things happen, but learn from that event.
I think that's actually very important, is to forgive yourself. I think the number one thing about forgiveness, other than finding peace, is also to forgive yourself for whatever event had taken place. But also just taking forgiveness, regardless if they say I'm sorry or not, just being
Yeah.
like, they said I'm sorry, move on. Or if you don't say I'm sorry, I think it's just accepting the fact that you may never even get an apology,
Yeah.
and then just moving on and then forgiving yourself for, trying to just holding on to that burden for so long,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
forgiving you hurting someone else, or you saying something to someone else, or you not being a good friend. I think it's important that you just kind of move on with life,
Yeah.
type of thing.
No, and when you said that, it actually kind of made me think like in another episode I mentioned how someone actually hit my car
Mm,
and they never stayed, they never told me what happened. So I'll never know who it was. But looking at it from someone else's perspective of where they are in life, and maybe they were having a really bad day, maybe they were late on rent, who knows, right? And that's why they panicked and they left. So, kind of accepting what happened and moving on with your life and forgiving them and trying to see it from another perspective
mhm.
can actually help you forgive that person. Because I don't know what that person was going through that day, right? I
Yeah.
I don't. And they could have really been having a very bad day and they just panicked and they
Mhm.
just left. And maybe they felt bad about it and maybe they're not forgiving themselves. So you got to look at it from all different angles and just forgive that person for whatever happened
Mhm.
and you know go on with your life.
Yeah. Um, that's a good point of looking at, life as from a different angle, because with me, like I said, I was toxic back then. If you did something wrong to me, I was very good at holding grudges, and some people would say, "No, she still hold grudges," but I'm growing.
I'm trying. I'm
I'm
trying.
trying out here, finding Jesus,
Mhm.
trying to be better. But yeah, I feel like it's important though to look at life from different angles, because I always believe that you don't have a right to tell someone else how they should or shouldn't feel when you affect them. And I say
Mhm.
that all the
Yeah.
time. You don't have a right to tell me I shouldn't feel a certain way. And like now that you said, like, look at things from a different angle, it's true. Like, I don't know what was going through their heads when they said the thing that to me that hurt me.
Mhm.
Like, whether it was something like, they could have said something racist, but I just have to like let it go, realize, these people had different upbringings.
Mhm.
Not everyone is going to be raised the same way as you. No one's going to treat you the same way as you want to be treated all the time. But just because someone was mean to you in that one setting, don't go ahead and transfer that negative energy to someone else. Just be like, all right, this person clearly had a bad day. I'm gonna leave it alone and I'm gonna go be nice to someone else, because or else
Yeah.
I'm gonna be angry and I'm gonna be mad. And it's just a grudge and a negative feeling. I always say that, like, when you don't forgive, or I just feel like it's very draining.
It is.
Even when you're angry, I feel so tired all the time. And it's like, why am I so tired? It's because I'm angry. Personally, I feel like life kind of seems long when you're angry, and life seems really short, but you enjoy it more when you're happy and you're able
Mhm.
to forgive people. And it's like, for example, like there was one person I feel like they really hurt me, and I felt like years. This is years and years and years ago. I feel like for years I was waiting for an apology. Whenever I saw this person, I'd be like, scrunch up my face and be all mad. But it's because I was waiting for an apology. As time passed by and I got older, I realized that I'm never gonna get an apology from this person, like, ever. They're never
Mhm.
gonna say I'm sorry, and I have to be okay with that, and forgive the situation and just move on.
No, moving on is actually a very important part because you can't just keep holding on to the past.
Yeah.
You need to move on with your life, and that person's moved on with theirs,
Hmm.
and you just go your separate ways. And a lot of the time, it's not even you're not forgiving to help that person. You're forgiving to help yourself because, like you said, it is very draining, and it's not affecting your life in this moment unless you let it,
Yeah.
right?
But I think it all depends on the situation, right? But the one thing I want to say about when something like someone does something to you or you've done something to them, that whole revenge thing, when you try to seek revenge, you're digging two graves,
Mhm.
right? You're digging one for that person, and then you're gonna dig one for yourself. And I want to say, like, I remember a couple years ago when I was driving on the highway. I think I told you this story already. I was driving on the highway. There was a guy in front of me, and this other guy was driving behind me. And I guess he got mad that I was driving too slow, so he whipped out of behind me, went to the other lane, and then cut off another guy that was in front of me. And what happened was, as we were actually getting onto the highway, now we're getting closer. The other guy, now that was in front of me, that the guy cut off, he zoomed out of his lane and then zoomed back in to cut in front of the guy that cut in front of him. But the guy actually hit his car.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, that was like, I don't know if that was karma or that was just, a seek of revenge, that you kind of just dig yourself a grave. Like, not literally a grave, but you dig yourself into a bigger hole that you didn't want.
Yeah, yeah.
If you had just let it go, like, okay, he cut me off, middle finger the guy, move on. However you let go of your anger, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Now they wouldn't have to have exchange insurance, call the police, because now you hit the man's car,
Yeah.
And I felt like at that moment it was like, oh wow, you seek revenge, and now you literally just dig yourself into a deeper hole instead of just
Yeah.
letting it go about your day,
Yeah.
you know?
No, honestly, driving, people have road rage. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that where you live, but I'm sure it is. I don't know what it is when people hop into a car that they're a whole different person a lot of the time,
Yeah.
and they get frustrated so easily. And like I get it on your way to work. A lot of time you leave late and you're trying to get there on time and this and that, and then after work you just want to get back home. So people are always rushing, and you get a slow car in front of you. Yes, it's frustrating, but you just got to let it go.
What do you feel like you've forgiven yourself for?
I wish I would have maybe stayed in school and finished schooling earlier.
Mm.
That's one big thing, because like I did go to school straight out of high school, um, and I dropped out. I went to college. I took a millwright course. So if you don't know what millwright is, it's basically a jack of all trades. You just fix equipment, different things like that. Mostly for the mines. That's what I would have been doing back in Sudbury, had I completed that. But at the same time, I'm like, is that really what I would have wanted to do with my life? So like at one point, yes, I couldn't really forgive myself for dropping out,
Mm-hmm.
and I regretted my decisions and my actions. Like all I wanted to do was really party and whatever. So I didn't do very good and I dropped out. And I didn't really forgive myself for that for a little while. But then I sat back and I thought about it, like, is that really what I wanted to do with my life? And I don't think I would have actually been happy working that job I would have had to work doing that career. So I feel like forgiving myself for that was a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to go back to school and take what I'm actually interested in and that I would like to do for the rest of my life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel like I mentioned earlier, looking at things from a different perspective and realizing that maybe I wouldn't have been happy had
Yeah.
I actually followed through, and there's a reason why it happened, why I dropped out, and why I had to go different paths and work different jobs, and realize that those weren't what I wanted to do until I found something that I'd be happy with.
Mm.
Yeah. Is there anything you think in your past that you either still don't forgive yourself for or that you have forgive yourself for?
That's a good question. I actually haven't thought about that. There is one thing. It's allowing myself to feel like I couldn't do this podcast years ago.
Mm,
Because I was always told, I don't have the voice for a podcast. Or, I pronounce the littlest thing wrong. The simple words, two-syllable word, I might pronounce wrong. Um, and I was always afraid that people will call me out on it, regardless
mhm,
of the word. that it is. I remember growing up, one of the little jobs that I dreamt of doing was being like one of the weather anchormen
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
And I remember when I went to the NBC studio and they had like this weather station that you can pretend to be a weather network person, whatever. And they had like the little, what is that screen called?
Teleprompter.
Yeah, the teleprompter. And they would practice. They would let you practice. They'd be like, "Hey, point here," and there was like a little green screen behind you. And it's like I've never seen it before because growing up, it's like you're thinking that they're actually standing in front of. Well, I thought so. They're actually standing in front of the weather. I don't know why, but as a kid, that's kind of like what I thought. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was actually a full out green screen behind you, and you're just pointing at nothing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
actually just green. You're literally just pointing here, some random spot. So I remember like we got to do that on my trip and I couldn't keep up with the teleprompter and I mispronounced a lot of words and I stuttered a lot. And that is something that I felt like held me back and I still think about that. I still think about that incident where I my dreams was crushed. Like crushed my
Yeah.
own dreams, I should say, because I felt like I couldn't read fast enough or pronounce words properly. Um so I couldn't be on TV, or I couldn't make a podcast or be on the radio because I would pronounce every word wrong. I
Yeah.
felt like, and I felt like people would be like, why is she speaking? Like, why is she talking? So I feel like that's something that definitely held me back. And I had a squeakier voice back then too, still do at times. But I don't know. I felt like, I allowed myself to hold me back from allowing other people's opinion to interrupt what I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, eventually, because since we're doing this podcast, clearly, I was just like, you know what? I don't care if people make fun of me for pronouncing a 2-syllable word wrong or a simple word that I think everyone probably should know how to say. Pronouncing it wrong, I don't care anymore. I don't care if someone says, "Oh, you don't have a podcast voice." I don't care. I feel like this is where, the YouTube platform has really made people feel comfortable in finding their own space
Yeah.
to feel comfortable. And honestly, like by forgiving myself for thinking a certain way that I don't have a YouTube voice or I shouldn't be talking because I can't pronounce certain words right. I just feel like, I forgave myself. And at this point of our life, we were here. I personally, Curtis, think that God has led us to doing this podcast because many nights I've dreamt of doing this, and it's fun because I would always say, "But God, I can't even say a certain word. Like, you want me to talk? Like, why would you want me to do this podcast?" And it made me think every single time I felt like wanting to do it, I got the courage to do it. I was like, "Ooh, but I talk like this, or my voice sounds like this. I don't feel like I sound soothing enough to do a podcast." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's something that has stopped me and interrupt my path of wanting to do this for so long because it was always something that I found wrong in why I couldn't do something,
Yeah.
and speaking and being afraid that someone like, come on now, if you watch previous podcasts, you would know by now that I've mispronounced some words. I have.
Yeah.
You've even called me out on it, but you didn't say it in a bad way. You're just like, just letting you pronounced that word wrong. And then I'm like, all right, let's edit it out. Or I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't care. Just leave it.
Yeah.
Forgive yourself for thinking a certain way. Forgiveness is something that I think brings happiness to a lot of people.
Forgiving is very important, whether it's forgiving other people or forgiving yourself and just
Yeah.
moving on and being happy with your life.
Do you think you forgive and forget, Curtis? Or do you
I
think you forgive?
Yes, I think I do. Maybe at first I will be a little bit upset if something happens that I didn't want to happen, or I wanted a different outcome from this situation and I didn't get it.
That's
So
a lie right there.
why is that?
You say you forgive, you don't forgive. This morning I was peeling some mangoes. I was cutting some mangoes and he got
Okay.
mad at the fact that I gave Trumpet, who's our dog, I peeled 2 mangoes and I gave one to Trumpet and I gave one to myself. And he came downstairs like, "Where's my mango?" How come I didn't get mango? So right there's a lie. You don't forgive because then you brought it up later on.
Yes, I do struggle sometimes, and I feel like we all struggle at times to forgive in the moment.
Yes.
But to prolong it, I think that's where we need to realize and actually forgive. But yes, in the moment, of course, want we're always gonna be a little bit upset in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's just natural. But to not be able to move on and keep holding that grudge, that's where it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you think you forgive? Because you keep bringing up this whole snack scenario.
um, I feel like my whole family is like
She don't forgive.
she remembers she remembers what y'all did 3 4 months ago, 3 4 years ago.
Hmm.
I am starting to learn to forgive. I
Mm.
said that, and I think I made really big progress
Yeah.
um over the last couple of years. I think I have, but the problem with me, I think that I have to learn how not to do is save up stuff to argue about, because
Mm.
when Curtis does something that pisses me off, I don't always say like, you did this and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I'll be like, all right, okay, cool. And I let it go. In my mind, I'm like, we're going to put this in the file for arguments later. And then when we get into a really big argument, I be listing off of things. I have a list of things that I've been saving up for this
Yep.
argument. So I feel like that is still a toxic trait that I have, but I'm working on. Now instead of listing off 8, I'd be listing off maybe 2.
No, it is true. You have improved. You have improved. I must say that.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. Just progress a little bit.
Yeah, I'm only human.
You're only human. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's not doing anybody any good
Mm-hmm.
not forgiving. Like you're just hurting your life, you're hurting the other person. You're affecting the people that you are around you every day
Mm-hmm.
if you're not forgiving and you're holding on to grudges and you're just miserable.
So how do you feel about repeated incidents?
Um I feel like it is harder to forgive the
Mm-hmm.
more it happens. Um, but at the same time, when you really think about it, it's like that is how that person is. If they're continuously making that same mistake, it's because that's like deeply ingrained in them. And you kind of have to look at it from a different perspective, like I was mentioning earlier, and just realize that maybe they are trying and they probably feel bad because especially if you say, I don't like when you do that. Now I told you this before, they probably do feel bad a lot of the time. They're like, shit, I made that mistake again, you know? But it's so ingrained in you that it's almost like a habit that sometimes you keep making those mistakes. But eventually,
Mm-hmm.
um, if the person does actually feel bad, then they will grow and they'll do it less often, and then eventually not do it at all, right? So you got to
Yeah.
kind of work with the person and allow them to kind of make mistakes.
I think it depends also again on the situation
Yes.
of mistakes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it depends on the mistake,
Mhm.
but
But the thing that annoys me the most, there's lots of things that annoy me, but I feel like another red flag in that part is when they tell you, "But this is how I am." Let me tell you,
then they
I
don't
run for
want to
the hills.
change,
Yeah, they don't
right?
want to change. Run for the hills.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're accepting that this is how I am, they're not going to change, and you got to accept that fact that they're not going to change.
Hmm.
But if they genuinely feel bad, like shit, I made that mistake again, you know, just work with them, let them continue to make the mistake, but hopefully they're making it less and less, and going forward, eventually they'll stop,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But yeah, is there anything that you feel like you need to forgive yourself for, or a person that you need to forgive that you haven't yet.
What are
Because
your views on forgiveness?
yeah. Let us know in the comments below, and we look forward to talking to you about those things
Yeah.
because I feel like forgiveness is a very, very big topic and it holds back a lot of people. It ruins a lot of relationships, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of friendships, and it could break up families.
That's
It
true.
really does if people are holding on to grudges. So I feel like forgiveness is very, very important and something that needs to be worked on.
If you haven't yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Like, follow the journey of this Thing of Us podcast. We're here every Sunday.
Mhm.
And, well, no, we're not ending this podcast, are we?
No. But also, I do want to mention if there are any topics that you would like us to discuss, please let us know as well.
Hmm.
Because, yeah, we want to hear from you guys. We want to make content that you guys actually want to watch and listen
And
to.
then we also enjoy creating.
Yes.
Yes. I want to touch back on to, where we were talking about forgiveness in other friendships and relationships. When we first got together, I immediately told you, I wasn't looking for a relationship. I didn't want one. And that was
Mhm.
because I felt like I was still angry from the previous relationship. And I didn't want to bring any of that baggage that you didn't create into
Yeah,
that
yeah.
relationship, and then I mess up what we could have had or could have been. So like I feel like I waited for like the right moment to start dating again. Like when someone hurts you and then you just get into a next relationship, sometimes it works out. But for me, I knew it wasn't going to work out if I just hip hop into a next relationship.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to, find peace with myself, find peace with the situation, and find someone that was going to accept me eventually for who I am. And then once I was like, okay, I'm ready to start dating again, you were like, all right.
Yeah. No, that extra baggage that you're carrying from past relationships, that definitely is toxic for
Mhm.
your new relationship. And like you said, sometimes, yes, it does work out, but a lot of the time when you're bringing that baggage, you're going to be very toxic to that new relationship and you may end up having another failed relationship. So it is very important to forgive and not necessarily forget because you want to watch for those signs, right? In your next relationship, but
Mhm.
forgive and move on.
Do you want to like Google maybe on some ways that we can forgive and move on? See if there's an article, people that have listed ways to forgive and move on. Yeah, so I feel like forgiveness isn't just about forgiving another person or forgiving yourself. It can be literally whatever it is,
Yeah.
um, that you feel like you have to just kind of move on from life and accepting it for what it is.
Yeah.
I feel like forgiveness, when you hear forgiveness, they think of, okay, they're gonna talk about another person.
Yeah.
It's more than that. Forgiveness
It
can be with a
is.
lot of things,
Yeah.
It's just a simple forgiveness, not allowing something to disrupt your peace, your energy. I think that is a big thing in forgiveness. And that's what I feel like I kind of want to wrap around forgiveness with so that
Yeah.
people don't just think forgiveness is saying I'm sorry or forgiving another person. It's more than that.
It
It's a
is.
lot more.
It is a bit, it's a lot deeper than just that, for
Hmm.
sure. For sure it is. But yeah, looking at this,
Which article are you reading? Let's give some credit.
this is just one that I clicked on Google. It says 8 Keys to Forgiveness,
Hmm.
and it's on the Greater Good magazine website.
Okay.
Um, and it's Berkeley Education, I guess. But yeah, so this was written by Robert Enright. So step number one is know what forgiveness is and why it matters.
Okay. I think we talked
Um,
about all that
we
in the
did.
podcast.
So become forgivingly fit is number two. So make sure that you're ready to forgive,
Oh, okay. I was like,
right?
huh?
I think that's what he's referring to.
Hmm.
Address your inner pain.
Oh.
So yeah, we kind of touched on that. Like, why were you upset in the first place
Hmm.
of whatever happened? So number four
Hmm.
is develop a forgiving mind through empathy.
Mm.
So, like I mentioned earlier, when the person hit my car, um, you know, feeling empathy and trying to understand where that person was or where they could have been on that day is a big step to forgiveness. I feel
Mhm.
like looking at things from a different perspective and just, trying to feel empathy for that person or for yourself. Um, yeah, I feel like that's very important.
Mhm.
Step number 5, finding meaning in your suffering. So, like I just mentioned earlier, try find the positive in the negative. I
Yeah.
feel like that's what he's writing there.
Mhm.
So number 6 is when forgiveness is hard,
Mhm.
call upon other strengths. You want to touch on that one?
Yeah. My other strengths is, a lot of the time I feel like I can't forgive just by myself. I have to ask, God, please give me the strength to forgive other people or, forgive myself because it is hard. It really is hard.
Yeah.
I feel like we make life complicated.
Hmm.
And because I think of a dog. Like I think of Trumpet. Like how easy it is for dogs to actually forgive.
Hmm.
They don't forget though. Like after a couple of times it happens, like you can see a dog, being scared to approach their owner,
Yep.
or being scared to do something wrong after a couple of times it happens. But the first couple of times, they're all happy. They're like, regardless of what you did, they're all like, wagging their tail, happy to see you still.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I try to live my life kind of similar to that. Not trying to turn my cheek all the time when, someone does something bad to me.
Yeah. No, actually, a dog is a very good example of forgiving but not forgetting.
Yeah.
I feel like they do that very well.
Hmm.
They'll remember and be cautious, but they will always forgive.
Yeah.
They do. And I feel like a dog is actually a very, very good example.
Yeah. And the dogs are usually happy.
Hmm.
I mean, at least our dog is, I think. I mean, his tail's always wagging,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Anyway, um, number 7 is forgiving yourself,
yeah.
which we've touched on. And number 8 is develop a forgiving heart.
Mm.
So I feel like those are all kind of topics that we did touch on throughout this
Yeah,
podcast.
I think so too.
And yeah,
If you guys have any other tips on, how to forgive or you want to add something to this podcast, comment in the comment section. We will always respond,
mhm,
and we look forward to talking to you guys. And if you like this podcast and you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, come over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, wherever you listen to your podcast, and rate us on there as well. And don't forget to follow
thanks to the 100 subscribers up to this point.
at the time of the recording.
Yes. Yeah, we are very
That's my
grateful
happy dance.
and happy that you're here watching this with us and listening.
And we look forward to talking to you guys. So happy Sunday, and we will see you guys in the next.
Or you can click that link over there for our previous video.
Yeah. Happy Sunday, guys. Peace. Yeah.
When you show gratitude for the things that you already have that you wish you had in the past, life will present you more opportunities to get the things that you want in the future. I feel like you're trying to say, no?